Dark Road answered some questions many of us have been asking for a while, but it also, as any Kingdom Hearts game would, left us with more questions. Perhaps a few too many questions if I'm being honest, but hey, it's just more stuff for people like me to talk about in our free time, right? Yeah. One thing that stood out to me in particular, and something I believe has gone under the radar for many, is the very first words uttered by the Master of Masters when he comes across as Xehanort, and I believe those very words may be the key to understanding the original role of Xehanort and how everything we saw of him was simply the consequence of the Master of Masters meddling. The Master called Xehanort the Singularity, which is something we've never seen anyone in the series be referred to before. I mean, I checked. Now of course, we don't know the actual meaning of the word in the context of the series, but going by the definitions of the term, I think the one that is most likely, and the one I'll personally be going with for this theory, is the definition that says a singularity is a peculiarity or odd trait. I guess another word for this would be an anomaly, and that's what I believe the Master is effectively calling Xehanort. Now with this in mind, I'm sure your own theory wheels are already turning. Why would the Master of Masters, the one who seems to have it all figured out, be calling Xehanort of all people a singularity or anomaly? Well, let's consider his position and what from his angle could possibly fit those terms. He supposedly is the author of the Book of Prophecies. Within the book, it states that the darkness will prevail and the light would expire. He also created mistrust and doubt amongst the foretellers with the traitor conflict, all for the purpose of preparing his own students to be vessels for the 7 deadly darknesses, and in doing so, effectively paved the way for a Keyblade war that would devastate all they knew. Now, let's consider what we learned about Xehanort in Dark Road. We learned that the player had started a new life in the Missing Link Scala, and when they grew old, they took Xehanort away to Destiny Islands to protect him from the darkness so that he could fulfill his role as the Child of Destiny. Player explains the reason for this was because they learned that darkness would prevail and light would expire, but that the Child of Destiny would prevent this, and player for some reason believed Xehanort to be this child. However, due to the events that took place in Dark Road, it's clear those who once believed that are now in doubt. Luxu says there's still no chosen one, Odin cryptically says Destiny can be so cruel, and even player says perhaps it's too soon before Xehanort has even grown old enough to do anything wrong yet. So are you seeing where the singularity comes in? The Master wants darkness to prevail and the light expire. He outright told Era that it would happen and nothing could prevent it. So if it turned out there was a child, one of Destiny, that could prevent that from happening, from the Master's perspective, this child would be an anomaly, a singularity, or I guess you could say a virus. The Master's system was meant to be set up and designed in such a way that nothing could circumvent it, but of course every system has glitches, errors, and sometimes these errors can crash it all. We all know there was someone with a plan to create this very thing, to create a virus. Brain wanted to find a way to circumvent the fate Ava had told him about, and she told him about it because it was part of her own efforts to circumvent fate, which is why she entrusted the Book of Prophecies to Brain when she had been ordered by the Master to pass it to the child whose name was circled in red, and we discovered by the end of Union Cross that child was Ephemer. So how does Brain tie to Xehanort, you might be asking? I'm sure the answer lies in Missing Link, but without the story from that game being told in full yet, there will obviously be some pieces missing. But I think we have enough information to piece together a general idea. When Brain encountered Luxu, something occurred between them, something that I'm sure will be fully explained in that game. Whatever it was, the outcome of it was that Brain ended up in Scala and is now present in Missing Link. Brain almost certainly still has his intentions on becoming a virus to ruin the Master's plan, and I believe that desire is going to shape the Society of Scala into a secretive organization of wielders who are hell-bent on finding and protecting the Child of Destiny to achieve that very purpose. But this doesn't end with Brain, however. It also relates to Luxu. Luxu was confirmed to be the traitor, and I believe I'm starting to see exactly how. Luxu, like Ava and like Brain, would rather that the Master's plans regarding the Keyblade War didn't take place. He tells the Master that they've sacrificed too much, and it's clear he wishes to put an end to the suffering, and yet it appears he's been following his orders to the letter. He still has the box, he still passed down No Name and ensured the gazing eye witnessed all it needed to witness, but I believe his actions with Brain, whatever they were, are what played into the creation of the Singularity. Brain was never meant to have the knowledge of the Book of Prophecies, and he was never meant to live that far forward into the timeline, but thanks to both Ava and Luxu, I believe Brain was able to further both their ambitions against the Master's goals, and we'll see exactly how he achieved that in Missing Link. Because of whatever Brain does, we then end up with Xehanort being called this chosen child from the start, and it's clear that part of their belief in Xehanort comes from the fact he is descended from Ephema. The one thing I'm curious about with this Child of Destiny thing is who started it. Was it Brain, or was it something Ephema was teaching and put in place before his time was done and then Brain just carried it on? Either way, I'm sure it's one of them, and they're the reason people like the player and Odin believe in the Child of Destiny. I will say though, it's quite ironic how their belief on how to prevent one prophecy is another prophecy. So they want to fight fate with fate basically. Yeah, that certainly isn't going to go wrong. Anyway, their concern was that Xehanort would be corrupted by darkness, which is what leads to them trying to effectively manufacture and control his destiny by sending him to Destiny Islands so that he would be able to eventually save the light, because they believe the Child of Destiny will hail from the Isles of Destiny. Everything they're doing is forcing this situation, again, like fate. Yet they are trying to stop the fate the Master planned for them. The irony here just can't be understated. I've seen many people say similar things like what Luxu said, that Xehanort was not the Child of Destiny, but I don't think that was originally the case. I think they had it right. I actually think Xehanort was indeed going to prevent darkness from prevailing. I think Brain somehow managed to successfully create his virus in the form of Xehanort, and I believe it would have worked, but we know thanks to all the events that happened in the series, especially the ending of Kingdom Hearts 3, that Xehanort was not the one to prevent darkness from prevailing and light expiring, because instead of him stopping the darkness, Xehanort ended up wielding it, and I believe it's all because of this encounter. Because the Master returned, which, by the way, how he managed to do that or why he's here when he supposedly went missing back in the Age of Fairy Tales is a big enough question in itself. Anyway, because the Master returned, he was able to correct this error. You could say he was the antivirus. If you look at his very first encounter with Xehanort, you can see he quite explicitly influenced him to go down a path he wasn't originally going down. He outright told him to look inside people's hearts. Now, bear in mind, this is exactly what made Xehanort seem to be the Child of Destiny, his ability to see into people's hearts like the players, and since the Master likely knew that and also knew Xehanort didn't understand how significant that power was, the Master was able to direct him into using that power to seek out more darkness. Xehanort even initially resists the Master's manipulation, saying people can't be categorized into extremes. I think the Master knew that Xehanort was indeed going to somehow prevent the prophecy, which is why, of all people, he took an interest specifically in him, giving him the black coat, which without, he'd never have been able to withstand darkness, and then giving him a specific task that he was confident would corrupt Xehanort. The Master had to ensure that Xehanort's power of looking into people's hearts was twisted to suit his purpose instead. Because everyone who knew of the prophecy, even one of his own apprentices, saw Xehanort go down a darker path than they anticipated, this led to all of them thinking he wasn't the one, when in reality he would have been if not for the Master's meddling. But of course, since everyone who knew of the Master, like Luxu, believed he was long gone, nobody would have suspected his involvement. Luxu even says perhaps Xehanort will still be useful, and we know he then went on to shadow Xehanort throughout his life. But if he wouldn't be useful as the Child of Destiny, then what would he be useful for? I believe it was to allow him to grow into being the perfect antagonist, or as they say, the scapegoat. This is the one who will summon Kingdom Hearts, the one who will recreate the battle of the 7 and the 13. But there's a further twist to all of this. If what I'm saying here is true, and Luxu, through his traitorous ways, aided in the creation of a virus to ruin the Master's plans, then let's remember what the Master said to him. The Master said that Luxu's feelings, thoughts, and actions were the key to the future, and that he was counting on him to be a traitor. In other words, All of this entire effort to create a virus to circumvent fate, to prevent the light from expiring, I believe this was all in fact what the Master actually wanted. I think the Master even played into it himself by embedding his desire for Luxu to betray him by following his feelings into a phrase.
May your heart be your guiding key.
He said Luxu's feelings and thoughts and actions were the key to the future, and that very saying has been passed down throughout the eras until someone, a boy who hails from the Isles of Destiny, would appear and be the living embodiment of that very same saying.
You have a gift, Sora, for connecting with others, and this makes that gift stronger.
As we all know, that very same boy, Sora, is in fact the one who ended up preventing light from expiring by breaking a nature taboo and being sent to unreality, the very same unreality that the Master just happens to be in. And as we see from both Kingdom Hearts 3's secret ending and the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer, the Master seems to be watching over Sora, taking a keen interest in him specifically, just like he did with Xehanort. I believe as soon as he saw Sora swinging that Keyblade in Quadratum, he knew exactly what had happened back on the home front. He knew that Luxu had betrayed him in some way, setting the stage for a child like Sora to wind up in unreality and be effectively delivered right to his hands. But that begs the question then, why did the Master not interfere and try to corrupt or stop Sora the same way he did with Xehanort? And if he did in fact want them to stop the light from expiring, and if Xehanort was truly going to accomplish that, why didn't he just let it play out? Now, I'm sure you could make the argument that the Master simply wasn't around anymore when Sora came into the picture, and so he couldn't step in to stop him the same way he did with Xehanort, even though again, it's questionable why he's even around in Xehanort's time. But regardless, the idea he would stop Sora from saving the light still contradicts the point I'm making that he doesn't actually want the light to expire. He said himself multiple times that the darkness has to be destroyed, but he only told Luxu this, whilst telling Era, for example, that there's nothing they can do to save the light. So which one does he truly believe? Given the fact he seemed to be willing to tell Luxu a lot more details of his plans, I think we can safely assume his true intentions was always for the light to be saved, which again begs the question then, why did he corrupt Xehanort at all and not just let Xehanort save the light if that's what him being a singularity would mean? I believe it's because he did want the light to expire, but he also wanted that fate to be reversed so that light would actually survive. So this might be a bit confusing, but let me try to explain exactly why Xehanort would be a problem for this and not Sora. Consider this, Xehanort used time travel extensively. In fact, without it, none of his plans would have worked out how they did. You could argue that he wouldn't have even been in Scala if not for him time traveling back to Destiny Islands to set himself down that path, and yet he never once broke any nature taboos, any rules to do it. He stuck to the rules quite well. Now, let's look at Sora. At the very first opportunity to jump to the past, he immediately goes about changing things and messing with the timeline. The very thing Xehanort, even in all his ambition to win, wouldn't do. Well, at least as far as we know, who knows what that 14th life thing is all about. And clearly, he was aware of the consequences because both young and Master Xehanort mention it to Sora, and Xehanort calls it the ultimate price. He knows the cost of breaking the rules, and even he wasn't willing to pay it even to get to Kingdom Hearts. And yet, just to save his friends, Sora was. That's why Xehanort was the singularity, because through all his time traveling, through him learning how to basically set himself down a path, I think he would have somehow found a way to save the light from expiring without having to effectively cheat destiny or time to do it, or at the very least, he wouldn't have needed to break the rules of nature. I think he was actually just too damn good, almost perfect in that way. I think the Master noticed that Xehanort was like this and decided he would be better suited to playing as the antagonist and becoming the perfect wielder of darkness. Why? Because he'd be unbeatable. He'd be so perfect, planned so perfectly for every eventuality that the only way he would be able to be beaten is by cheating, by breaking nature itself in order to win. Xehanort would be perfect at forcing the next kid, the next child of destiny if you will, into doing exactly what the Master really wanted, because that child's only hope would be to pay the ultimate price.
It's not over.
Come on, that's not fair. I know I had you.
Yes, you nearly did. But a game's no fun if you know where it's going.
Yeah, you got me.
Huh? Really?
What?
It's just, you never admit it when you lose.
That's 'cause I never lose.
Oh, come on.
The perfect nature of Xehanort, that mind that anticipates every turn, that is exactly what made him an oddity, a peculiarity, a virus in the system. The Singularity. A child so perfect he would save the world without breaking its rules. But the Master wanted someone who would be willing to break those rules, who needed to break those rules. And who else in the series other than Sora would really be so loving and yet so reckless, whilst also possessing the power to see into the hearts of others and form such powerful bonds that strengthen them. In the Master's script, Xehanort's nature as the Singularity makes him the perfect antagonist, and I believe he set him down that path so that one day his existence would lead to the rise of the perfect protagonist, an imperfect wielder that's only chance of being a perfect wielder was sacrificing his entire existence. From as far back as my video on the fated child, I have always said that I believe Sora is in some way integral to the Master's plans going forward, and I mean, let's be honest, he's the protagonist of the series, so of course he's going to have some importance to the antagonist. But just like back when I made that video, I'm still not entirely certain how Sora plays into the Master's plans. But clearly it involves unreality, and that is something that we know is somehow relevant to Xehanort too, though how, we still don't know yet. Xehanort's knowledge of unreality has yet to be explained, and from where I'm sitting, it seems like those in the Missing Link Scala will have some sort of connection to or understanding of unreality that will become very important down the line, and I wouldn't be surprised if this knowledge of unreality was also factored into their plans on how to subvert fate. In other words, I don't believe Ava, Lushu and Brain's desire to stop the Master ends with the Key Saga. I think in Kingdom Hearts 4 we may very well see the grand outcome of all their actions over these eras, and it may turn out that in the end it will require both Sora and Xehanort to truly stop whatever it is the Master is trying to accomplish. This theory was not easy to put into words because a lot of it involves pieces that have yet to be revealed to us. If anything I'm saying here has any truth to it, then when Missing Link finally explores the old society of Scala, I'm sure this video will make more sense. There's certainly still many missing links to be explained, and hopefully before long, they will be. But until then, my name is NextGenNovelist, and that's all I've got to say, and I'm out. Peace.